Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the We Bought a Franchise podcast. I'm Jack Johnson.
I'm Jill Johnson.
And today we have an incredible guest. This is so rare. We have Bobby Kelly from Home Helpers. Bobby, before I introduce the rest of the group, because I'm going to forget my train of thought here, how long have you been with Home Helpers?
You know, Jack, I celebrated my 20th year anniversary on October 5th of this year. So, yeah, very blessed, very fortunate.
Wow. How many units have you awarded over that time?
I've awarded over about 400 personally. We were umbrellaed with a strategic franchising many years ago. So I was actually pulled a little bit from the brand here and there to help other brands. So some of those that you guys have probably heard of that are up and running and striving now, I was kind of on the ground floor at that time because we have had so much success with Home Helpers. We built a few others under that umbrella. Then in recent years, obviously, we're standalone now with our group. But yeah, about 400 personally operating around the country as we speak.
There should be a franchise development hall of fame and you should be in it.
I would love that, Jack. Run that by somebody.
Let's make it happen.
Okay, we'll send you an award.
And for those of you that are listening to the podcast and you can't see, of course, we have our wonderful franchise consultants. We have Catherine Allen. We have Brian Gross. We have Jay and Carolina Arosa. So this should be a very, very, I think, entertaining show. And for all of you guys listening, I also want to invite you to go to our website, thefranchiseinsiders.com. We have a new feature where in 3 minutes, you can learn your top franchise match. I'm not kidding. Test it out. Go to thefranchiseinsiders.com. And not only that, when you do get your franchise matches, you can actually hit a button that says connect me to the franchise and we will connect you right to that franchise. So with my shameless sales plug set aside, Bobby, let's dive right in. Yeah. My question to you is, what makes home care such a powerful, purpose-driven business?
You know, Jack, number one is that we're dealing with something that we're all going to deal with at some point. So the core mission is built around care, right? And I think that's also what makes it very appealing for a franchise owner or a candidate looking to maybe tiptoe into it. You know, I've often told, anybody who's asked that it's one of the rare opportunities that creates a win-win. And what I mean by that is that you're going to be associated in your community with everything that's good. You're providing jobs. You're helping people that are in need. You're becoming a void and kind of a family dynamic. But at the same time, as an entrepreneur, you have this scalable, huge opportunity in front of you. So what makes it, a very purpose-driven business is that we're able to impact communities tomorrow. We don't have product to sell. We don't have anything sitting on the shelves we got to get rid of. Somebody's in need. You're able to help. And so, we've built something very special here, but it's always been around kind of those core values, that core mission, because the second you forget about that and you get wrapped up in the weeds in the business, that comes through to the end user. So it's such a purpose-driven business, and it's something I think anybody in the space needs to always keep top of mind because it is such a high-level, scalable business as well. It's very easy to get caught up in that and lose kind of why we got into it in the first place.
Just to add on to that, let's discuss quickly your item 19 to put some context around it.
Sure.
What numbers, if people were to look into your FDD, what would they see in your item 19?
We captured, Jack, that the average franchise owner, the average franchise unit in our system, and that's at about 1.9 million at 12 months and beyond. We also want to capture kind of our top 50 franchises, and those guys are pushing that 10 million mark. And then, of course, our top owner is pushing about 29.8 million, I believe, is what they did last year. So needless to say, it's a very healthy item 19. What's awesome about it, though, is that, in that item 19, we're also capturing what's the median. We highlight timelines. What's somebody doing at 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, 48 months? Because if you're a prospect or you're a candidate, it's not necessarily where can I get to. That lets you know you're fishing in the right pond. I always tell franchise, and I think, Jack, you and I have laughed about this before. I tell so many franchisors, quit selling year 3, year 5, year 7, year 10 results. We're all starting at zero. So let's get real excited about that. But let your item 19 let a candidate know, hey, I'm fishing in the right pond. I have a scalable asset. I got a timeline where I think I can get here because I'm above average, or I want to push to be in that top 50. But ours is extremely healthy, but it should be after 28 years, right? It should be after 28 years. So not just the numbers that are in there, but deliver the data around it to allow somebody to come up in their head. What's my model? Who am I? Where would I fall? And what can I expect in certain timeframes? Because that's what every candidate's trying to get their hands around. We can tell everybody how much money they can make. I need to know how my life's going to change next Tuesday if I buy your business. And so we want to give a little bit of that in there as well to help somebody really gauge the opportunity as a whole.
I love that. So when you're looking at these candidates, how do you determine who's going to be a good owner based on, their empathy, but also their operational excellence? Like, cause you kind of have to have a balance of both, right? How do you determine that or look for that?
It's such a good question, Jill, because I'll tell you that if you miss balance in that, you're in trouble in our space.
Sure.
Right. And I've always talked about the way you'll attract them is being true to who you are as an organization in everything you do. Everything we do here is built around the core mission and our core values. Everything. So getting back to your question, Joe, look at our awarding process. We're going to surface right away. Facts are facts, figures are figures. There's certain things that every franchisor needs to know about a candidate that lets them know, hey, we should probably go to step 2 here. However, once we're there and we can check those boxes, the majority of our process from that point forward, Joe, is about them. Do you align with who we are as an organization? Do you align with our core mission, our core values, right? Are you comfortable at being at 0? Because we're going to be there, right? Is the end user important to you? Right? We attract, because of our success and our tenure, we attract a lot of high-level entrepreneurs, which I will tell you, I'll take them all day long. My team will take them all day long. But that doesn't necessarily mean because of their past record or who they were leading up to that first initial phone call that they're going to be an ideal fit for us. And I want to be very transparent through that process. So, Jill, building everything around kind of who we are as a brand and our mission and our values allows the right people to surface at the end of that process. Because, again, I think in franchising in general, man, there's so many facts and so many figures. Why hold back? Put those in front of people and start really gauging partnership. Because when you can check those boxes, we're gauging the right stuff now. Are we valuable as a team? So we build everything around that, which allows us to usually work with the right folks at the end of the day.
Yeah, that makes sense.
This is Catherine. I have a question. What's changing in how families are choosing home care today?
Yeah, Catherine, it's a great question because this is where, my tenure kind of comes into play, and I'm able to speak on like where were we at as an industry 20 years ago. For those of us who are around, it was that kind of, oh, this is a luxury service. Somebody can afford this, right? And only a certain amount of people can afford it. There wasn't many resources built around it. So I've been fortunate enough to see it evolve to where it's a necessity. And because it's a necessity, the end user now is really focusing on who do they want to align themselves with when they start this journey with mom, dad, a loved one, whoever it may be. And I will tell you, Catherine, it's going, fast towards a total comprehensive kind of holistic approach to care, right? We remember the caregivers, right? We're going to have a caregiver and Betty's going to go into the house and for 20 hours a week, she's going to provide these services. Now it's more about outside of that, what can you provide me? I may not need everything you offer right now, but boy, am I going to feel really good and probably choose you at the end of the day if I know there's additional services to come because I don't know what I don't know now with mom. 2 years may look a lot different than it does right now. If you can have an answer for the unknown in 2 years for them, then right now's decision becomes very easy. So, getting back to, Catherine, where they're spending their time when they're doing the research, it's around who can check all the boxes, even though I don't need them all checked now. And we build our Cared For program around that. And we're very proud of that. We've put together, a total holistic kind of comprehensive approach to care because we went out and figured out what are the top 4 or 5 things someone in that boat needs that they'll never need anything else. And that's meal delivery and telehealth options and wellness checks, along with kind of that caregiving to where you fill the gap when there's no family around or a caregiver. So, I would look at, a package more than just a service nowadays. That's what's going to check the boxes.
Thank you, Bobby. And a quick follow-up, because Carolina, Jay, Jack, and I, we all were in home care for so many years. And I think this is interesting. I'm curious, like, where it was when I was in it and where it is now. Majority, and Carolina, maybe it was different for you and Jay, but when we looked across the board, across the country, majority of our clients came from assisted living facilities, hospitals, and geriatric care managers. Those were our top revenue driver, top client drivers in terms of revenue. Is that true for you guys, or is it different?
It still holds true that the referral sources are going to probably become your best friend in this business if you want to scale something quickly. However, let's face it, technology has become a huge, huge component of anything any of us do at any time. Home care is no different, meaning that the direct consumer, leveraging social media, leveraging the digital space has become, very, very evident in the last, couple of years that people are getting ahead of the curve. Instead of waiting for somebody to tell them to get care, right? It used to be the doctor said, you need this. If you're getting out of surgery on Monday, have somebody there Tuesday. Now it's the children. Now it's the folks that are saying, hey, dad passed. What are we going to do? So you have, in our case, we want to make sure we always have a presence on every platform, the digital space, the social space, but then also become very, very active in our communities because the doctors, hospitals, rehab centers, OBGYNs are referring people every day. And it goes back, Catherine, to what kind of you're talking about, and I think it's often missed in the space. Understand that the seniors are going to drive this for years and years to come. That's why we're all here, right? Baby boom, front end the baby boom, 77, need is now. I will tell you what will make you be around 28 years and have franchisees doing $29 million in revenue. Here's what will make you or put you in a position to be able to do that. When you understand that there's a 40-year-old man down the street from you that's going to have a stroke, who needs the same services as the 85-year-old that their family's calling for you to come be a long-term solution. There's a mother being put on bed rest every single day, maybe for 6 days, maybe for 6 weeks, maybe before birth, maybe after birth, right? What has happened is that all of us have realized that we need care. It's not just necessarily this senior-driven opportunity anymore. It's the backbone. It's the core of the business model. However, what will make you different in your community and make you scale a business for years and years to come is to understand you're just in the business of care. So those referral sources you touched on are key, but they're broader now. And that direct consumer, the digital space and leveraging social media and everything that we want a franchisee to do opens up a world, right, to not just that senior community, but all folks that need care. So I hope that answered your question.
Thank you.
Hey, Bobby, so we've talked a lot about just the growth you've seen over 20 plus years. So, how do you preserve the personal touch while growing nationally? Yeah,
we're fortunate, Ryan. I'll tell you, we're very fortunate because we got a powerhouse leadership team here. And again, considering the nature of our business, right? The nature of our business is that when you strip it down, guys, we're going to put someone behind closed doors with someone's mama, right? And I know that sounds crazy, but that's the core of it. And that powerhouse brand on the surface doesn't just mean anyone walks through that door. So we want to concentrate from the franchisor standpoint or support standpoint, driving all the resources that we've been able to accumulate over time, that national powerhouse brand, national powerhouse resources, drive them locally to our franchisees to be able to consistently, right, concentrate on what pays their bills and scales their business, while they can count on us to do what we need to do nationally. And that's why I brought up that powerhouse leadership team. If you're in the home care space, you must be living under a rock if you don't know Emma Dickinson, our CEO. Emma's on Capitol Hill, speaking on behalf of home care companies, speaking on behalf of small business. Emma is fighting for caregiver pay and everything that goes into this. So a lot of that expertise, a lot of that advocacy, a lot of that meaningful message is what will grow a home care business nationally, right? It's not going to be necessarily the rah-rahs and the look at us and you better use us, because I'll tell you, a lot of people aren't going to use us until they are in need. People usually make decisions in home care based off either compelling opportunity or compelling trauma, right? It's not something to shop for. I often tell my franchisees, nobody drives down the highway and looks at a billboard and says, can't wait for my mom to get old, right? No, right? So count on us to hit this at a national level. And those who are looking to become part of the Home Helpers family now, it's very fortunate because there's 28 years of brand equity, right? That's been built over time. And the reason we were able to build it over time is because of success. So you kind of inherit that and you can feel very, very comfortable to say, I am with the right brand, but they're going to make sure everyone locally knows that brand instead of I'm in charge of pushing this thing out to be the next McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts or whatever it may be that really rely on that national marketing. Home care is a little bit different animal. So hopefully, Brian, that answered your question.
I'm going to jump in here and take David's question because it's a good one. And the question is, and I'm going to add a little something to it. What do top home helpers owners do different than owners that don't perform at a high level? And then the follow-up to that, Bobby, is do you see in your network those high performers then buy the low performers, right? Because a lot of times what we share with clients and what we look for as franchise consultants, when we select a franchise for you as the franchise searcher, we want them to have proven acquisition and exit paths. And what I mean by that is if you're really good at this, there's opportunity for you to grow that $29 million business. I'm sure that's not just one location. But if you're not good at it or life happens and you need to change, we want it to be where you can sell your franchise to another owner in your system so you don't have to go on to Biz by Sell and, wait 6 months. I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
It's a great question. I'll answer the first one first, Jack, because I have this conversation a lot, obviously, with people who are looking at the business. Like, what do they do different? Why are these guys here and these guys are there? And it's going to be somewhat of a simplistic answer, and I'll back into it a little bit. But I've often said if you took 370 of our franchisees and you shoved them in an auditorium, and I said, Jack, go in there and meet 370 owners, I am pretty sure, Jack, you'll walk back out of that auditorium and say, Bobby, I'll tell you who your top 50 are. Guarantee it. And here's what I mean is that they live, breathe, eat the essence of this industry with the understanding that I've got to scale a huge business to make the impact I want. So they're the happiest people you'll ever meet, but they're the most genuine. And what I mean, by being genuine is that they take that big time business idea, that scalable asset, and then they become just like the local deli in their area, just like the local bakery in their area. I've heard some other, franchise talk about like become the mayor of your city when you own this business. It's no different. It's no different. We are, again, putting people behind closed doors with folks' loved ones. So the best owners in our community understand that they need to be the best people in their communities locally, right? They need to be the face of home care in their space. Nobody cares necessarily day one about that home helpers on your shirt. What they care about is they're going to trust you to take care of a loved one. So they get that before they get anything else. And the other piece, Jack, is I heard it said best from an owner, and it's something I often share because I think it's important, is an owner at a national conference of ours was on a panel. And we take our top owners and we allow new owners, maybe year 1, year 2, just to pick their brains. How did you get to 200 billable hours, 500, 1,000, what have you? And I will never forget an owner of ours out in California said, I will tell you when my life changed as a home helper's owner. is when a light bulb went off in my head and said, wait a minute, I'm not going to do anything between the hours of 8 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock at night that don't make me money. And if you think about that, new owners, what are they caught up in? My email address is right. I filed this way. I had to call this person back. And what happens is you look up and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months have gone by. And yeah, we feel like we're ready, but all we've been doing has been getting ready to get ready. The best owners, Jack, attack the day to say, during this time frame, this business is about 2 things and 2 things only, because without them, you don't have a business. Where are my clients and where are my employees? That drives revenue. Everything else should be working for those 2 things to run parallel consistently. So, Jack, the best owners, that is top of mind every day. I wake up, I worry about 2 things, and during these hours, I'm only doing things that are going to benefit my business. I'm not busy just to be busy. And then, you touch on, we're fortunate to have a large franchise system. We're fortunate to be, again, 28 years in the game. So in most communities out there, most major markets, what you'll have, Jack, is you'll have high performers. Odds are you're going to run into somebody who does extremely well. And that gives a peace of mind for those who maybe things have changed along the way. 1 year in, business isn't for me. Believe it or not, everyone gets awarded. Life don't stop. Things change. Maybe somebody got into it and said, you know what? Can't find a light at the end of the tunnel. Had something tragic occur. You never know. In most major markets around the country, we are fortunate that there is somebody that is in that market that is able to work with that struggling franchisor or somebody just exiting for whatever reason to be the first option to acquire that business, Jack, or work out some type of agreement that makes that transition a little bit smoother than just, I'm so worried I have to shut the doors, or I have to list this, or I don't know the time frame of when I could sell it, because maybe I don't know how long I can hold on. So all those things come into play, but we actually, to your point, Jack, is we work with every new franchisee about what is that exit strategy. And we do that early on. And when we say exit strategy, I think that's a loose term, right? But what are my options, right? What are my options if something does happen? Or, hey, I blow this thing up and we're sell for profit. It's my neighbor my first route. So we actually got some built-in resources to help individuals understand options when it comes to exiting the business. And a lot of times, Jack, that's the guy next door.
And the lesson for all of you listening, because this is, Catherine, I know you know this to be true from our time at Home Care Assistance. We would show someone a territory and they'd say, oh man, I want to have the whole market. I don't want there to be a neighbor there. I don't want to compete with them.
Yeah.
And the message is you're not competing with a fellow franchisee. They've already built brand awareness. Now you're coming in, your job's a lot easier. And like you said, Bobby, now you have a potential exit or acquisition partner. It's like Jill and I just introduced a client to an aircraft cleaning franchise today. And his concern was, well, there's only one market left in the area. Everything else is sold around it. And I said, listen, month 18, you're either going to have plenty of exit partners or plenty of acquisition partners. So for all of you listening, if you can still get a single unit territory, don't worry. Just get good at the business. And in month 18, you can figure out what you want to do next. Catherine, I know you have a question.
I do. And what you were saying, Bobby, when I was in the world of home care, favorite thing to say was always be selling and always be hiring.
Yep.
Like that was the motto for home care. But my question is, what kind of support systems are most critical for new owners?
Yeah. And wow, I talk about this a lot, and I know Jack and Jill have probably heard me touch on it before, but we're fortunate, Catherine, to where we've afforded ourselves the right to be able to support franchisees where they're at in their journey. Does that make sense? So again, when understanding that majority of the people that are going to make a decision to buy a franchise have never owned anything, right? You may have some folks that are diversifying their portfolio or what have you, but again, day 6 is going to look a heck of a lot different than month 6. And month 6 looks a heck of a lot different than year 6. So, what we pride ourselves on is to have a designated support for where you're at in your journey. We introduced a 2-year onboarding plan for every new franchisee. They're going to be assigned an onboarding manager for the first 2 years. Why? Because that first 2 years looks a heck of a lot different than what it will once your culture's built, when you need a little bit less hand-holding. Here's what's crazy about that. Everybody on that team has owned or operated a home care company.
Wow.
Meaning that, so when you're a brand new owner of ours, who is mentoring you, who is dotting the, crossing the T, jumping on the phone, flying out to see you, has owned and operated a home care company and been through the exact startup, scale, everything that you're probably going to face. But we also want to be appreciative of someone who's built their culture, someone who needs less hand-holding, right? We need to get a little bit more strategic and less operation. And that's why at that 2-year mark, now you got a regionally based ops manager who now, instead of saying, hey, here's what happens when someone calls in sick, we're talking about how are we taking it from here to here. And so I think it's key to support owners of where they're at and understanding that it's impossible to do it universally. It's impossible to do universally. In our world, Atlanta, Georgia looks a lot different than Dallas. Dallas looks a heck of a lot different than California. And somebody 2 years in Dallas is going to have a heck of a lot different situation. Somebody's been operating 5 years in New Jersey, right? You have to take those things into consideration when you're supporting franchisees. Is where are they at, not only in their journey, geographically, what are they facing, what works here may not work here. And again, we're very fortunate because after 28 years, we've afforded ourselves the right to have those resources. But our candidates inherit that day one. So there's kind of this umbrella of support to say, you know what, I know that when I get here, somebody's waiting on me there, that's what they concentrate on, even up to like having we have an entire ops team geared just for our top 50 owners. And that is a former franchisee of the year, whoever looks at that department. So.
Well, hey, Bobby. I love what you said earlier about anticipating clients' needs and kind of taking this holistic approach around providing care services. I know we experience that as being a great differentiator in a sometimes very crowded or busy space.
Yeah.
But my question is, with the rising demand in senior care, what do you think are the largest kind of growth opportunities down the road?
Yeah, Jay, I still want to strip it down to like a single unit, right? What does that look like for me? And to understand that there's more resources now than there ever has been to support our cause. Saying that gives an franchisee the ability, right, to not just scale consistently geographically, but you're going to be able to scale within, meaning that providing additional services, right? Being able to not just say, we rely on this home care, but the telehealth piece I talked about. I think there's going to be huge opportunity with AI and how it's being incorporated into our day-to-days and how people are going to be receiving care and to be able to leverage communication with family and what have you. So again, the biggest, growth options are all, I would say, are within right now. But with the understanding, and this again, I can only speak for home helpers. What we've recently done is we've actually, from a territory standpoint, we have drove down to who pays for our services, right? So many franchisors, rightfully so, population-based, right? Here's your territory. Analytics and demographics play a role, and let's make sure we have this amount of seniors and this amount of X, Y, and Z. We now have it down to a science of 28 years, 370 franchisees. Who pays for our services? What type of lifestyle of those 65 and above, right, are actually saying, I want that care, or their family says, I want that care. So to get back to your question, Jay, the opportunity is endless because with the way we have access to data now, technology and what have you, we're able to get into the decision maker's living room. And I think there's a huge growth opportunity there instead of a shotgun approach with your home care business to be able to say, I can concentrate on those who are going to pay my bills. But then I'm also, because I got into this because of the care piece, I'm able to make a bigger impact here because they're receptive to what I'm doing. right? Which cuts cost of acquisition, which cuts marketing dollars, which cuts a lot of the capital needed to where you can really concentrate on what's driving revenue with less cost associated with it. That's where growth options are. I would love to tell you the international space. And again, that just comes with franchising. Everybody will do that the way they need to do it. Our space is a little bit different because different bylaws, different things you got to be aware in the home care space in other countries and what have you. I would rather concentrate on what are growth options for franchisees and for our brand. And I think they're from within, and I think they're at a single unit level because the resources now really allow you to optimize the territory you own without having to think you, and Jack brought it up earlier, have to own the world, right? This thing's growing every day. Remember, there are few opportunities that we're going to go to sleep tonight that matter what Jay does, matter what Caroline does, matter what Bobby does, matter what Home Helpers does. We will wake up tomorrow morning and our inventory grew by 10 to 12,000 people without us doing anything. That will happen for the next 20 years. So if you think about that, right, that opportunity is endless, but it all is within. It's right under your nose. So what you bought today is going to look different in 5 years, in 7 years, in 10 years. So there's no reason to reinvent the wheel or think you have to own half the country to be successful. It keeps feeding you and feeding you and feeding you. Just stay 2 steps ahead of it. And that's why choosing the right franchise and the right partner becomes very, very important.
That's excellent.
Hi, Bob, this is Carolina. Listening to you, it brings up, having been in the home care space, right, and having owned our home care franchise, it brings up a lot of good memories and feelings, just listening to you. And I remember it brings me back to how inspiring and fulfilled I was when I was running that business. And again, it resonates with me when you talk about the impact on families and communities and, the seniors. So for someone who is looking to go into home care, would you say this is a calling or a business?
Yeah, it better be a calling before it's a business, Carolyn. Here's why. There's not, there's not too many industries that the end user will see through you if you're not genuine about what you're doing, right? We can sell product. We can be the best marketer and somebody want to work with us. That will stop at the living room door when someone's grandmother's sitting there if they quit believing you right? Your marketing's great. That's why I chose you. But man, now that I've got to know you, you don't ever want to hear that in our industry. So I do believe that it has to be a calling that will turn into a very lucrative, scalable business because it means something to you. And what drives revenue needs to recognize that daily. And again, not to say that there's not an executive model and you can't put the pieces to the puzzle to drive that down. And we want every owner to eventually get to that level. But at the same time, individuals that are going to utilize you need to feel safe before they feel wowed. Wow them with services, wow them with your approach, wow them with how much you care for who you're taking care of for them. Wow them for your accessibility and always being around and being a voice. That's how you'll wow somebody in our space. It won't be because the biggest billboard or the coolest logo on your shirt. So, it's very important that you recognize, though, it will not be as warm and fuzzy if you can't pay bills. So, to your point, that's where it balances out. I get asked all the time, Bobby, who's the best owners you got? I said, those who understand that the end user is the most important person in the world. And this is going to be associated with everything good. And it's going to be warm and fuzzy. And you're going to wake up and feel really, really great about what you're doing. It will get a little bit less warm and fuzzy, though, if we can't keep the lights on. So we need to find that parallel to where that passion, that calling becomes that business that you want it to be, and let those two things play off each other and run neck and neck, and you can't lose. You can't lose in that case. But if one goes haywire, and maybe I'm in this for all the right reasons, but I really, really could see the scalability of the business, but you don't care what's happening on a day-to-day level, there'll be short term. So calling before business.
Yeah, and I can attest to that. When I first entered this space, there was a ton of competition. It's quite intimidating when you think about how many competitors there are in the space. But then as you go through the business, you realize that a lot of them really treat their caregivers and their clients like in a very transactional manner, right? Yeah. It's almost like a caregiver drive-through and a client drive-through. And they don't make that effort to build that relationship with either the caregivers or the clients. Yeah. And so, they may have a lot of volume, but again, they're not building these relationships, and that makes a world of difference. And like you said, the clients and the caregivers can see that. They can feel that difference. So if you're not leading with authenticity, if you don't demonstrate that you really care about, again, making an impact in their lives, they're going to go to the next one who can really listens to them, really is interested in making a difference in their lives.
Yeah. And Karen, you touched on something that I think it's key here, though, is that, same thing goes for who's feeding the business, right? We talked earlier about hospitals and doctor's office and rehab centers and folks that are placing people in your care. And what will happen when something goes wrong in the house is you're going to get one phone call as a business owner. We don't need you anymore, right? Mm-hmm. The call that's going to happen, though, is going to go to that doctor's office who also sent you 20 other clients. And they're going to go, who in the world did you put me in touch with? Mm-hmm. So if that experience you're talking about could snowball and kind of leak its way through your entire business. So if the core's not there and the mission and the values and everything that the industry calls for, if it's not important for you, over time, it will surface. And it won't just be with the families. It'll be with those who are sending you business, those who are a key piece to you growing and scaling, the opportunity over time. So you're exactly right. If it's not genuine, it's not good. And if it's not genuine, it's probably short term. And it goes back to what Jill asked me very early on in our conversation, is that how do you balance, right? And find that right owner, that man, they got to build this crazy big business, right? That's why we're all here. But how do you find that kind of needle in the haystack that says, hey, this is equally as important right now, caring for people and empathy. And that's where the magic happens, and so it's such a great question, but I agree 100%.
Bobby, I'd love to kind of tie together the last couple of points you've made. You laid out the huge opportunity, the demand, the favorable demographics in the senior care space, the home health space. But then also, you kind of made the point from your 20 plus years of experience, this is probably more of a calling. So what would you say to potential buyers that are interested in really just diversifying into the healthcare space?
Yeah, first thing I tell them, go now. Meaning that there's never been a more opportune time than right now. And I can say that because I've been doing it for 20 years. And people say, Bobby, why is that? And again, you can kind of trace it back to COVID, right? And during COVID, right, there a lot of change, a lot of mystery out there. But what came out of that was that we all kind of learned that we can get what we need at the home, right? We'll get resources in the home. So home care has always been a scaling business. It's always been a growing industry. It got front and center really quick. And so first thing I would tell anybody, is, Ryan, is that go now. There's never been a bigger, better time to do it. And the other piece of this is, and it's going to sound crazy, is that, I tell people, pack a lunch when you come to it. I think home care can be looked as an add-on sometimes. Diversifying a portfolio, simplistic. It's hard work. It is hard work. And anybody tells you not, they're fooling you. Again, go back to partnering with the right people. Somebody who's eliminating risk, streamlining startup, and putting me in a position to where then I can surface my skill sets, and everyone will benefit from it. So, when you look at it, and I joke about packing a lunch, but be ready. It will come at you quick. The demand is overwhelming. And when I hear that, I'm worried about clients. I'm worried about how will I get clients? I'll say, walk outside and trip, and you'll fall into somebody who needs it. Right? So it's those type of, individuals that say, hey, I see it for a scalable business. I'm going to attack it. It's who we want to align ourselves with, because I will tell you, it's not no longer a business of just small build or small scale or time consuming. It's hard work, but the demand is now, and it's overwhelming. So if you're ready to get down and get at it, it's the right industry for you. But if you think you're going to tiptoe into it and over a course of time, everything will fall in place, it'll pass you by.
I mean, I remember my first full year at Home Care Assistance was 2008. And of course, we all know what happened in 2008. Yeah. And people still invested in home care franchises, and people still needed home care. I mean, as far as our home care revenue in our pilot location went, it didn't affect us one bit. And then you see COVID, and Jill and I must have 200-300 home care clients out there. It felt to me, anecdotally speaking, like everybody's business got bigger.
Yeah.
The need was still way there. And what you said, Bobby, is really important. If you work from home, which a lot of franchise owners do, if you go walk outside your house right now, if I go walk outside, we're at the home office today, I will see at least 5 service trucks on my street. Yeah. Everything from closet remodeling to renovation to restoration to painting to window washing to, what did we see? What was that company? It was like demolition inside the house.
Yeah, like junk, with like a junk removal, but yeah.
We had a handyman last week. We had a mobile tire repair guy come to our house. We want everything brought to our house. And if we can't, we have a guy come wash our car. You're exactly right. We can have all this stuff brought to the home now. And so for all of you that are listening, the reason that I'm saying this is I think the way you need to look at this is, if you're looking at a business, can it bring services into the home? And are those services recurring? In other words, I need it, and I need it a lot. Yeah. And if we look at home health care, when the top line investment, I'm just going to be, 150, 200K will get you a single unit home helpers, including franchise fee, and give you a nice runway for working capital. And you can grow a great big business. And so we had a client last week who we introduced to home care, and it was something he never thought of, but he scored really well with it. And he was shocked at how much he liked the business. But he said, I've always worked with kids. I'm a former teacher. Can we look at some education too? Because I just want to make sure that we do that. And so we were far enough along in the process where I said, sure, let's look at some things. And he came back to me and he said, what's so interesting is that a lot of these education concepts, I'd have to spend 2-3 times what I would spend on a home care concept. Yeah. And my revenue potential is really capped. Like, you're looking at unit economics on some of those education franchises that don't even go above $500,000. So it really is remarkable how good a business home care is. And then one last point before we get into our rapid fire, I really love what you said about being revenue driven, because I've seen too many home health care franchisees early on become caregivers. Yeah. And I'm sorry, if you're a caregiver and you're a home care owner, you are just costing yourself money. You're costing yourself sleep. That's not what you should be doing. You should never be Carolina and Jay, you probably remember me saying this to you. You don't need to walk a mile in your caregiver's shoes. Spend your time on the business. Try and have 1.5 to 2 caregivers to 1 ratio. If you can have that, boy, you're in great shape. And like you said, Bobby, in home care, it's not a question of getting the business. You'll get the business. Make sure you've got the bench. Yep. Because in January, when that 24/7 case comes in and you can't staff it, boy, you're going to be kicking yourself.
No doubt. Jack, you hit the nail on the head, and you touched on something I think is key, is that be revenue driven. And that's where, Brian, you asked me earlier about how things have evolved a little bit. And I think it's worth bringing up that, years ago, because of how the industry was set up, it kind of being introduced, and the warm and fuzzies we talked about, a lot of attention was around those who maybe had been a past caregiver, or I've been right? I'm in the business of care. And that should be why you picked up the phone and called Bobby. But they were a little bit set back when the first question Bobby had was, have you ever reviewed a P&L? And they go, well, wait a minute, I'm not worried about that. So you got to be worried about it, right? You got to be worried about it because the industry is not going to wait for you, right? If you strip down the warm and fuzzies and just look at it as a business, it is moving and moving fast. So, you got to approach it as that I'm going to run a scalable asset here, which allows me then to get back to why I did this in the first place. And it's to positively impact the community and to be in the business of care. The way you're going to do that to the masses is by running a very successful business for years and years to come. So that's that balance, Brian, you were asking about, is that's how this thing's evolved to where I think it was warm and fuzzy driven a little bit. People realized, wait a minute, we got to get serious quick because the demand's overwhelming. And Jack, that's where we're at now is you better be revenue driven because there's more out there now than there ever has been. You won't get by with just coming in and hoping things work out. You're going to have to really concentrate on operating a business, having that bench full, as Jack said, and all those pieces, which is why a good franchise partner makes sense a lot of times for folks.
We thought that too. In the beginning, we were like, let's go get nurses. They should be great owners. And they were way too clinical. And so their revenue was super low and the high salespeople came in and were our top performers. So yeah, that's the beauty of all this for all of you listening is that if you go to a good established home care concept like Home Helpers and you talk to Bobby, who clearly knows a ton about this, you're going to find out real fast if you're the right fit. Hey, let's jump into the rapid fire. Jill, you want to kick us off with the first?
Yeah.
question?
So what do you think is the biggest myth about owning a home care franchise?
Joel, I'm going to go right to the employee, the elephant in the room. I'm never going to find anybody good to work for me. Never going to. I hear it every day. Bobby, I know the business is great. I got so many folks that I know could use it. I'm so worried about working with caregivers, or I've heard horror stories about caregivers, or the liability of, remember we talked about having someone behind closed doors, with someone's loved one. And again, it goes back, the biggest myth is that all starts from the who you're going to partner with and the resources and tools that they have to put you at a very safe place. And that's evolved over 28 years. Remember, we have 370 people doing this every day. So when somebody comes aboard with us, like everything we're going to do is around those two things. I touched on it earlier. Where are my clients? Where are my employees? Those employees are as important or even more important as the clients. So a lot of the tools and resources are built around finding the right folks, paying the right folks, retaining the right folks, which is the key. But guys, there's more employees out there than you think. And I hear it a lot. I don't know where I'm going to get them. You'll get them. You just got to get the right ones. So I think it's a huge myth in the industry is I'll never find enough people to support the demand. Yeah, you will, but you need to look at for them as hard as you do, those who are going to need your services. Again, your marketing plan better be geared around two things, not just one. You got to market to the right employees. And that becomes a key piece of somebody doing really well.
That's great. Catherine, you want to take the next one?
Yes. Most rewarding part of working with franchisees.
Catherine, easiest answer ever.
I know it's hard to get down to one.
It's the journey. It is the journey. And I'm sure you guys experience it as well, is that I touched on this. I was speaking to a group a few months back and they said, Bobby, what are you going to remember about all this? And I said, believe it or not, the first call, that first phone call, and then to see somebody on a platform, to see somebody who, was stepping off the curb with their life savings and had 2 kids at the house, and then to see them winning awards and or scaling their business and buying 2, 3, 4. And the journey is the most rewarding piece. The results is just a scorecard for that journey. So, to be somebody's first phone call, then to watch them achieve and to get everything they wanted out of this business and to better their situation, family, self-awareness. There's no value to it. I mean, it's something it's why I've been here for 20 years.
Carolina, take us home with the last one.
All right. So finish this sentence. The future of senior care franchising is
now. And what I mean by that, it's right now. And again, it goes back to kind of the question earlier, Carolina. I know we want this big fancy answer. It's telehealth, it's AI, technology, it's this. The future is right now. It will pass you by if you're thinking about it. So let's all go. If you're interested in it, step off the curb, because this thing is going to change minute to minute, day to day, month to month, year to year. It's a moving train, and you're either going to get on board or it's going to run you over. So when people ask me, Bobby, what's next in home care? I say, what's not next?
Mm-hmm.
What should I do? I say, go. Let's go. Because, there's so many moving pieces.
I think what you just said, Bobby, is the best advice to any entrepreneur. Don't overthink it. Just go.
Just do it.
Go to work. Speed. I see Cody Sanchez post about speed all the time.
Yeah.
Speed over being brilliant.
Yeah.
Just go do it. Sometimes you need to build the plane on the way down. Bobby, this has been awesome. You are always such a great person to talk to. For those of you listening, we were at a conference with Bobby, and Jill and I had to go on after him. And he's a tough act to follow. But this has been so insightful. And for those of you that want to learn if Home Helpers is available in your territory, please visit thefranchiseinsiders.com. Contact us at 800-445-6382. You can also go to our team page on our website. You can find contact information for Catherine, for Brian, for Carolina and Jay, and for Jill and myself. And thanks again, Bobby, for joining us, and for all of you listening. Thanks for listening to the We Bought a Franchise podcast. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
We bought a franchise. We bought a franchise.